I love being out. So I'm curious. I'm curious if let's see. Can we go back to gallery view so we can see each other? Not everybody's got their screen on, but I'm just curious if folks have ever been out backpacking or hiking in Mount Hood National Forest or otherwise. And if you just want to like raise your hand, or you can put in the chat as well. See, some folks have. So I am not an expert. I just love being out. So yeah, I think that we can share our wisdom and knowledge and questions and curiosities together. I wanted to the reason my passion of I'm passionate about the forest and protecting the wildlife, the water, and so my major motivation, I'm just going to say it up front, is to teach people how to poop in the forest. So the name of this event, The Ins and Outs of Backpacking, is really, it's all about what we take in and how we deal with what comes out. But I will start with talking about water. And thanks, Daniela. So when backpacking, we need a good water filter. We can, so actually, if you would come back to the me screen. Thank you. So there's a bunch of different kinds of filters. I have this, oh wait, where's I'm missing the main piece of my filter. Thought I had all of these pieces. Oh, it is here, it's right here. So this is my little kit. For different kinds of filters have different considerations. So for something like this, you need to find a stream that you can kind of scoop and fill the water, and then you attach this little doohickey, and then you just squeeze the water through into your bottle. It's an awesome and very light little system, but yeah, it needs some sort of pool in order to work well. And then there are other systems. I've got this this filter I've had for many years that has two different, it's like a pumping together super easy to use, and what goes in the water is like, it can be a very small amount of water that you're filtering from, a stream, whatnot, and then it's got the out tube that goes to your bottle. So there's a lot of different considerations as far as like how much is being filtered out of the water. And these both are great for the mountain streams that we've got around here. There are ones that the Grail filter filters out like viruses, which I think these maybe aren't quite good enough for those. And so that's a consideration depending on where you're going and what the water sources are going to be like. So yeah, then you want to have backup, maybe go back to the slide. In addition to having your filter, it's good to bring iodine tablets for backup, just in case your filter breaks. And to carry more water than you think you're gonna need before the next stop. So if you're carrying all of your gear from one place to the next, sometimes I've found that stream is dry where I thought it was going to be, or I was actually on the wrong trail. I thought I was on a trail with lots of water, and I ended up on a ridge trail. Kind of misread the map. Yeah, it's important to have maps, and it's important to be able to read them. And having, being comfortable while out in the forest is important, and having enough to drink, as it's often hot and dry, and yeah. And let's see, any questions about water or questions so far?
I have a question. So how do you calculate how much water you need per day? Say that it's on like an average hike that's not very steep.
Yeah, that's such a good question. So, I mean, different folks drink different amounts. I think I've heard it said that you should drink more than, or you should drink double your weight in ounces of water per day. And then you're going to need water for cooking as well. You don't necessarily need to, depending on where you are, you don't need to carry all of that water at the same time, but you need to consider that much. I tend to on the outset, it's pretty heavy, but to carry that water for the first day, unless I know where I'm going and I know that there's water there right now. Yeah. Any other questions? I want to make this really open and interactive as y'all want. So moving on to food. I recommend that there's like, you can buy the pre-packaged backpacking food that you just add water. However, it's a lot of packaging. these days when we're in shelter in place, the bulk system is pretty different, and shopping is pretty different. But somebody's making a note, Trader Joe's. Yeah, they bulk sections in co-ops or in larger stores often have like mixes already of a couscous, flavored couscous, or a black bean soup mix. And great, somebody's putting some vegan options, bearplate.com. And I tend to like to bring some fresh or some like a carrot and an avocado. Like people do backpacking very differently. Some people want to go as light as absolute possible, and those kind of things add to the weight when you're already carrying your tent and your water. And however, yeah, I like to start out with that for the first day. And then I like to make my own mixes, say curry, roasted veggies. I roast veggies, spice them however I like, and then I have a dehydrator, and that can, if there's a kitchen share or you know anyone, you can borrow the equipment, so you can also borrow backpacking equipment, especially if you're starting out and haven't been out before and you don't know exactly what's going to work for you. And it can help to borrow gear and share. So, and then when you bring dried dehydrated foods, you can reheat them during the day. If you want to bring it back to the video. I bring, this one is a little bit large, so it depends on how many people you're with, but these work great for, you can put water in here. It doesn't have to be hot water, just start to rehydrate it during the day, and then by the evening, it takes a lot less fuel and time to heat up your dinner. So with that, and like during the day on the trail, I tend to bring like nori and like a hummus mix that I can mix up really quick, that kind of thing. I have a great little stove that I've had for many, many years. This whole online format is so strange. If we were in person, we'd like make heat up a little meal, and but this is what we got right now. So this is my little stove, and it takes these kinds of fuel canisters. So another reason that I like to reheat or rehydrate over time. These take resources, and so minimizing on that is, I encourage. And this is my pot. This is a steel pot. Not everybody would choose this, but for me, I eat very slowly. So I heat my food in here, and then when it's done, I eat out of my pot. If I'm sharing with somebody, I scoop theirs out, and it keeps it warm because it's steel. So for me, the extra weight is worth it's worth it. So there's a lot of those kind of considerations when planning for a backpacking trip. What to take, what not to take, what extra weight is worth it and what isn't. I also do a lot of dehydrating during the summer, and food stays good for a long time. These are blueberries that I did last summer that I've kind of been saving, not eating, because I'm holding on to them for the summer, special summer treats. I dehydrate, or I soak and then dehydrate nuts. The soaking of nuts makes the nutrients in them more accessible because they're seeds. They've got everything that they need to grow, and all of that nutrients, all of the enzymes are released when they're soaked. And so when they're soaked and then dehydrated, they still retain that. They're like ready to go, and our digestion can absorb more readily what they've got to offer, the protein and then all of the nutrients. So I will stop again. Got a question from Stacy. If you want to go ahead and ask out loud, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could say more about dehydration. I have like one that I got on like my neighborhood buy nothing group, which was kind of a score, but it's a weird one. It's like I don't think it's as good as probably the one that you have, but so I haven't used it a ton, but I'm curious about like how you would dehydrate more meals. I get like the fruit, that would be pretty easy for me to do. But can you say a little more about like recipes for like, are you actually making like a bean soup and then dehydrating it and then rehydrating it again? And
I am. Yeah. And it does make a difference, the dehydrators. Some of them may not get up to a heat that would be good for vegetables and beans. Yeah, I recommend the Excalibur. I don't recommend like everybody going out and buying new equipment, because it's really expensive really quick, and it's one of the things that keeps this kind of activity inaccessible to a lot of people. There's many things that keep it inaccessible to a lot of people, and I think it's really important to think about, and therefore to share, and reach out. Like I'm happy to loan out my dehydrator if folks want to. I use it a lot in the summer, and that's usually when folks want to also be doing dehydrating. But yeah, I'm a resource, and the kitchen shares.
But so how do you make a soup, like let's say you made lentils in advance and then you just stick it in there and it dries out?
Yeah, so they've got these Teflex sheets with what is Teflex? I don't know. It's a fancy material that so yeah, soup. If it like not a super runny soup, I don't think that would work. But I've done like curried vegetables, even had coconut milk in it, and I like did it on the setting that is for meat, so that it's hot enough, because really the more kind of fats and proteins that you have, the higher the heat you're going to need to dehydrate it quickly enough to have it be safe then to preserved safely. But yeah, kale chips, vegetable crackers. I love making all of those sorts of things. One of my favorites last summer was eggplant strips. I sliced them really thin, drizzled with olive oil and salt, and baked, and then dehydrated. And it was like, it's this super salty, crisp, amazing treat.
Thank you for those ideas. That sounds amazing. I will definitely try that.
Yeah, another favorite trail food, you can't really see it through the glass jar, is soaked and dried walnuts. Call them woke walnuts, and seaweed. So this is like wakame seaweed. So it's got the salty, and on the trail, the salty, when you're sweating, is really nice. Yeah, any other questions? All right, well then we will move on to the moment we've all been waiting for. Waste. So there we are, in thinking about our impact on the forest, is really important when we're out. And our distance from water is essential. So peeing at least 200 feet from any water source, stream, lake, and pooping at least 400. My tendency is to go basically as far as I can in from the all water sources. So I'm like, okay, I know there's a stream over here, a lake over there, and so I'm just gonna go a ways, but also monitoring what I'm trampling on, because usually when we're going off the trail, and so monitoring, trying to trample as little as possible. And then, okay, so thanks, Daniela. And so a trowel is really important. When I first started backpacking, I was using rocks. Nobody ever taught me how to poop in the forest. It's really hard to dig a hole in hard, dry dirt with a rock or a stick. So a trowel is pretty essential. This one is real nice, and however, it's real heavy. So I wouldn't want to bring that one. This is one I've been bringing for years, backpacking, and it's pretty lightweight. And so we want to be digging a hole that's like 6 inches. So if we can, thinking ahead to, that we're going to need to go and dig a hole before it's like, okay, I really need this hole to be 6 inches. Yeah, because sometimes different, there can be lots of rocks. It can be challenging to dig a hole. I also try and disturb as few roots as possible, and there can be a lot of roots. Sometimes I'm like, okay, this is not the spot to, somewhere right over here a little bit. So I measure before I go out. I'm like, where do I need to be? Where on my trowel do I need to be? So on this one, 6 inches is like right up to here. For folks who don't have a video, I apologize. So just knowing how deep you're going to need to dig your hole and being able to measure that on the tool. Last year, I did get fancy, being the poop educator I am. I needed to upgrade, or not, didn't need to, but I decided to go for the lightweight titanium little digger. This whole thing is just under 7 inches. So I know that, but I also found that it's like, it's not very comfortable. It doesn't have a nice handle. So you can wrap a hanky around the handle. Got that in your back pocket to make it more comfortable. But it can get really quickly frustrating to be digging a hole, but it's really important so that the waste can decompose, can be completely covered, and then is not hazardous for wildlife who are attracted, or for water, running off into water, and then just covering well, and covering with a rock. I like to mark where I've been. I'm a slightly territorial human creature. It's not territorial. It's just like, okay, that's been there, and I've gone and I've seen a stick. So I either a rock or a stick sticking up out of that spot. So it's like, okay, not that spot, but by itself, human waste will break down really quickly in the ground. I highly encourage, I think it's important. There's so many people out in the forest, backpacking, hiking. I think it's really important to pack out toilet paper. A lot of people think it decomposes really quick too, but it doesn't nearly as quickly. So I carry a plastic bag. I use a Ziploc bag. Some people use like newspaper bags, and then they can tie each one after each use so that it's contained. I like a Ziploc bag. Yeah, one that's fairly sturdy and not going to bust. And then I keep my toilet paper in a separate clean Ziploc bag. And in my poop kit, so I keep that all together along with my soap, just like a decomposable Dr. Bronner's soap. At least 400 feet away from water, more is preferable. I encourage folks to pee further away during the day. from your campsite, from water. At night, you're not gonna wanna, when you stumble out of your tent to pee, you're gonna probably stay fairly close to your tent. That's what I do. So I also make sure that I'm sleeping far enough from water. Washing dishes, both away from water, so you can use water from the stream or it says lake, but it's lake, and then rinse with filtered water, and use a small hole, just again to not be attracting wildlife. Questions and comments on waste, poop holes?
I got a question.
Great.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to all this backpacking stuff, and I just want to like be clear. Like, you're saying you come with toilet paper, and then you have a separate bag for which to like store that toilet paper after you use it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I guess my first question is like, how long does that last? Because I feel like at a certain point, you're gonna have to dispose of all of that used toilet paper. See what I'm saying? Like,
I pack it all the way out. So I don't use a whole lot of toilet paper. I'm pretty minimalist. I use like just enough, and so it doesn't for just one person. And I sometimes go backpacking in a small group, but I encourage everybody to bring their own little waste paper bag, and carry that out with them all the way out, and bring it back to the city. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Does that clarify?
No, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I had a question back to the dehydrating. I listened to the lady talking about, but I think she was talking about fruit and stuff. I have the Excalibur, and it talks about dehydrating like at 135 or something. She likes to keep it 105, 108 to keep the enzymes. What do you think about that?
I have not done that for fruit. But I do that for, that's interesting. I do that for the nuts that I dehydrate. And that it works brilliantly. So I think fruit would work well. What I would say is I would slice it really thin, so that it dries faster and doesn't mold in the time that it's drying. And I think it probably wouldn't, but you just, you want to be really make sure it's safe. And
I just dehydrated it longer,
Yeah, yes. Yeah, definitely just until it's like I dehydrate until it's like solidly, there's no water in it whatsoever. If you're dehydrating something, like fruit, and you want it to still be a little bit moist, like that would be something that you then like keep in the fridge, that it's still chewy or something.
Oh, really? If it's pliable?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
Okay, thanks.
I am not giving out a packing list per se, just kind of some things to think about, because everyone is different and what we're gonna need out there. Thank you for the correction. So clothing, we're gonna need extra warm layers, and I tend to use layers I don't bring a pillow, I bring a pillowcase, or stuff, food, not food, not food, clothing inside of a jacket, roll it up and have that as a pillow. But definitely making sure that, thinking about that if you're going up into the mountains, it's going to be colder at night. And having the extra hats and gloves and scarf and under layers is important to think about. Bringing all the cooking gear that you need, your spoon, your spork, or whatever, your pot that you can eat out of. A lot of things can have redundancy. And your sleeping gear, your sleeping bag and a pad of some sort, good footwear, sandals, a swimsuit if you're going to be near a swimming spot. I recommend bringing rain gear, usually always I bring rain gear, even if it's not going to rain. And I know that. It can also double as an extra warmth layer if needed. And it's also, sometimes there's like sudden storms. Your tent, your poop kit, and which is your trowel, bags, your TP, your soap, and then a first aid kit. Yeah, and again, what you're going to need in your first aid kit is might be different than what I need. And if you want to come back to the video, I like to have moleskins. I've had this one pack of moleskins for a really long time. I haven't used them that often, but getting a blister in your boot can be really aided by having something like that.
Question again.
Yeah.
Safety. So, you mentioned inaccessibility to many folks around this activity. I've definitely had some scary experiences. So sort of general thoughts on safety. I guess in this moment I'm thinking about humans, but of course animals are an issue too. Any past wisdom to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I know for a lot of people who have more experience, people. I'm more scared of humans than wildlife. Wild animals, even the big ones, tend to steer clear of humans, and we can't help but be noisy enough to let them know that we're there.
I don't think there's an easy answer. I mean, it's going to be so situational. I guess I just wanted to bring it up if anyone else has thoughts too on like how they've dealt with situations, or I don't think everyone's going to have their own comfort with like how to protect themselves. I don't know if you travel with like mace or anything like that. I typically don't, but
I haven't, and I haven't like I have, I've definitely, there have been, drunk folks nearby, and I think I've been pretty lucky. I don't, I put up a force field. The national forest, the public lands, the so-called public lands are have been traditionally like accessible and more welcoming to white folks who are able-bodied and less so to Black, Indigenous, people of color, and I've been thinking about this. I just there are groups. Wild diversity is a group that takes groups into, does backpacking, does outdoor adventure type groups for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and queer, trans, LGBTQ folk. And I think it's, if for folks who have the privilege and accessibility to be able to kind of do these sports, I am one of those folks. Like, that kind of highlighted your question, Stacy, kind of highlighted like, yeah, I haven't thought about that nearly as much as I think a lot of other people have. And so for me, it's important to support and donate to organizations like Wild Diversity that are making the outdoors more accessible. And that link to their website is now in the chat. Thanks, Daniela. And I see another note that from Shannon Snow, keeping a whistle. Yeah, a whistle is good. I have a whistle as well in my pack, and so thanks for noting that, Shannon Snow. And yeah, and then there's an organization called the Disability Justice Culture Club, which is right now they're doing a lot of mutual aid for disabled, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and the disability community has been doing mutual aid for ages. So they really know how to do that well, and so that's just another resource for supporting organizations that have traditionally had less access and privilege around the outdoors and being out in the forest. Yeah, that is all I've got on my agenda. But I'd be happy for more comments and questions. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sam.
You may have already, I joined this meeting like 15 minutes late. You may have already covered this, but I'm kind of curious about like your general backpack. Like, what are you carrying all this stuff in?
Yes.
You may have started by addressing that, but
I didn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious about that.
Great question. Yeah, I started with water and water filters. I had when I started backpacking, I went and I got the biggest possible backpack I could. Because I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail, which is like, you do that in like 6 months. I've still not done more than like a 7-day backpacking trip myself. So I'm definitely not the expert. However, people who do this kind of sport, like some people are gearheads and they have all the gear and then they've got like extras. So my coworker, I got this backpack from her, and it is, I don't know how many like liters, 70 comes to mind, but I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
And it's been a challenge because it's much smaller than the one I was used to for years, and that's a good thing. It's like both hard and it keeps me from not bringing everything. So I really have to think about it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna want a book while I'm out there, and I'm gonna want, my writing, my journal, and maybe I'll want some watercolors, and then I'm out there and I'm just like, I'm just enjoying being out there. I don't ever read.
Yeah.
So knowing yourself and what you need and what you don't. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just trial and error because you're like, I'm really gonna need this, and oh, I never used that. Okay, make a note, keep a list and make a note. But having for me having some kind of lumbar support is important, and this one's got like this like it's kind of there's air that goes through the back. I think mine said something about that, but it didn't. It was 30 years old and an aerated back. It meant a different thing back then. So like REI garage sale can be a good place to get things sometimes, or
And Shannon's adding,
Buy Nothing group. Say again.
Shannon's adding in the chat too that REI rents backpack gear. It's a great way to try out gear before making the financial investment of buying it. It was very
That's awesome.
expensive. They had everything I needed and helped fit the cost of my body. So amazing way to figure out what works for you. Thank you, Shannon.
Very cool. Thanks for that.
Stacy also has a question about advice on navigation. They say, I use the Gaia app because my fancy friends recommend it, but still haven't figured it out. Maybe you recommend old school paper maps.
I do. Because computers are not my specialty even. Yeah. I definitely have a cell phone, but I would have a backup of some kind. You can print out, you can have it as simple as printing out a map of just the trail that you're planning on going on. A lot of trails around here are pretty well labeled, but it can be, getting lost is can be really challenging and really scary when you realize you're not where you thought you were. So I recommend getting a compass and learning how to do it, and learning how to follow a map along with the compass. It's a great skill to have, but takes some time and study. And Bark, as part of the ground truthing training, will teach you that if you don't know.
And actually, on that note too, we have some ground truthing trainings coming up. Here I can share my screen and show you how to get more information about that. There we go, upcoming events. So yeah, here's our website. And then just at the top, you can navigate over to events. And we have in July 2 ground truthing trainings coming up. It's a two-parter. So the first one kind of goes over navigation stuff, and then the second one builds on that. So Wednesday, July 8th and Sunday, July 12th. Thanks for letting me plug that.
One last question.
Yeah, Sam.
It has to do with like packing also. Like, I'm just curious, like your sleeping bag, for example, or your whatever like bedding that you sleep on. You tend to usually like hook that to the outside of your backpack or try to like put that in your backpack. I'm thinking a lot about like actually physically packing all this stuff in so that I'm able to be a single person and have all I need like on my body.
Right. I do usually, like, oftentimes the backpacks have straps on the bottom, but when I have done that, it's then like gotten in the way of my butt. So it's just for comfort for me. I also, like, if it starts raining, like I want my sleeping bag is the last thing I want to get wet. And so yeah, I have it in. I did both because I now have that smaller pack, and I splurged on one of those compression sacks that kind of like, it really cinches it down so it's much smaller. So yeah, I put it in, put everything inside.
What do you usually do? Like if it does start raining, just find shelter and then try to plan ahead?
Yeah, I have had trips that were like wet the whole time. It can be helpful to have a cover that goes over the backpack if you're then hiking through, or that then setting up your tent. And yeah, I've spent a lot more time in the tent on those trips. But that can be a lot of fun too. All right, well, that's all I got. If nobody's got any more questions.
I dropped the link in the chat. It's our homepage, bark-out.org, so you can get more information about the ground truthing programs and volunteer opportunities, and our upcoming events. Our next one is this Sunday. It's going to be a virtual hike, which is our monthly Bark About, with two of our hike leaders who are very knowledgeable on medicinal and edible plants, and the setting is the urban setting, right? So how do you find medicine and food when you're stuck in the city? So it should be a great one. So join us for that one if you can. And thank you to our Ecology Club speaker tonight, Lo, for sharing your experience on backpacking, the ins and outs of backpacking with us.